All right, we are back.
Hello,
Back-ish,
back-ish, back sorta, back,
right?
back in this new reality of ours.
Yes, indeed. And happy to be here, right?
Yeah, we've really missed it, and we know you guys have missed it because you have told us that, and
Yeah.
we're really glad to be able to give you something. Jeremy and I have been working on getting the finer details out of this little format you see here and now we think we can maybe do at least a few things, and at least talk about music a little
Speaking of minor details, Matt, you're looking quite present
bit.
today.
Am I good?
Yeah,
I
pleasant
have
and present.
new webcam,
It is great, man. It's
which
great.
which lags worse but looks better.
There you are in living color.
I'm in living color. I'm lagging worse than my old one did, but at least you can actually see my face now. I don't look like just a vague outline of a shadowy person. Although at least one person said they thought that looked artsy. So I definitely did think I was going to. I definitely did consider keeping that. But no, I need to be seen, I guess.
Yeah. Speaking of which, that beard is probably longer than it's ever been in a while, I think.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, thank you for reminding me how bad this is starting to get. Yeah.
Nothing to keep you, nothing to keep you shorn. There's no reason to do that.
This is my quarantine beard. It is not staying, don't worry.
I'm catching
Before
up
I
on you,
go
man.
back out into the world. Yeah, yeah.
Well, you want to talk real quick about what we're kind of trying to accomplish here? I think we kind of covered that on the first video. Um,
Yeah. Well, the
it's
big thing is to try to give our listeners, who have been great, by the way, uh, through all of this and with all of their support. It would try to give them at least something,
mm-hmm,
right?
absolutely.
And to at least talk about music a little bit and keep the podcast going as best we can during these turbulent times.
Mm-hmm.
That's thing one we're trying to accomplish.
If it's not a full blown episode, at least we can, for the moment, for the time being, answer some questions and still talk theory and still nerd out.
Yeah, and we're hoping to do full blown episodes. I mean, we're working on plans to do that.
Yeah.
We're just sort of taking baby steps to get back into this kind of back into the groove and everything.
Mm-hmm. Last time there was some kind of weird auto switch thing. I don't know if it's going to happen this time or not. We're going to see. But I was getting so upset as an editor watching this thing change whenever one of us would start speaking, which is appropriate, but it's still it doesn't look good. You know what I mean? It's not a
Right.
good look. It's like if GarageBand decided where the chord changes are going to be. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It ain't
Which you can
cool.
tell it that actually.
Right? You can. I'd rather tell it. I don't want it to tell me. I want to tell it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways,
Uh,
I think you look good. You got the camera kicking. You sound good. I can
Camera
hear you.
kicking sounds good. We're
I
we're making progress here.
I hope I'm gonna sound better because I got my microphone actually rolling this time. And I noticed the piano last time when we would some of the chords would kind of fizzle out, and I think that's some kind of an auto gate
Yeah.
happening. But now I'm recording on MIDI backup, so hopefully
Yeah. Yeah,
that'll
and
sound
and
better in the
and
final
ladies and
edit.
gentlemen, now you get to hear Jeremy's keyboard skills. So you can
Yeah. This is where editing would come in handy.
I should go ahead and say that Jeremy tried every possible idea he could possibly think of to avoid having to sit at the piano.
Right,
It's
right,
like,
right.
can you hook your piano up to your computer? Is there a way to Zoom stream MIDI information? It's like, yeah, no, Jeremy, I don't think it does.
My life is just one big workaround. You know what I mean? What you do? Go with the flow.
Yeah, story of their lives. Yeah.
But enough about that. Speaking of video, you sent me a cool little thing earlier, and it looked like you had a proof of concept that you were working on. Correct?
For my Facebook page, yeah, my Facebook artist page too. I'm just toying with the idea of maybe just talking about some philosophies of music and some thoughts on the aesthetics of music and music's purpose in an artful society and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Maybe not push a whole lot of deep theory, but just sort of talk about what music means to us and how it does what it does to us and things like that in a series of really really short videos that I might be putting up somewhere. That is an idea I'm toying with. If you would like to hear that, definitely encourage me, because I'm a wallflower. I do not like seeing my face on the internet. So definitely tell me if you would like that.
Maybe you can send them a private copy or something when you get the one you finally like. When you find,
When I
but
get, yeah.
I thought the discussion you had was really good. It was actually it can be a really good little mini episode for whatever your pursuits are. You know
Thank
what I
you,
mean?
thank
Yeah.
you, thank you. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm believe it or not, I'm actually kind of a shy, reserved person by nature, so it doesn't just come naturally me to get on the internet and run my mouth. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, the podcast was working out just fine. My mother said I have a face for radio, and she's right. No, mom,
Oh
you didn't
yeah.
say that. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, Mrs. Burns didn't say that.
She
Mrs.
did not.
Burns is awesome, by the
She
way,
she's a
ladies and
saint.
gentlemen. And she's a great lady. I like her a lot. Anyway,
Anyway, how about so that's kind of what's been going on with you, huh? How's Fran doing? She good?
she's good. She's good. We cook a lot. We sit out on our deck a lot. We listen to music a lot. No big surprise there, I don't imagine. But we do what we can to keep ourselves sane and okay.
Mm-hmm.
So far so good. I finished at least one composition in the last 3 months and starting on
Dang.
another. So yeah, a lot of my live performances have sort of bit the dust because of
Mm,
COVID-19. But
sure.
we're still here and we're still plugging along. How are you guys?
We're good, man. I'm kind of proud of my wife, Heather. I want to give a shout out to her. She got a new job. She's doing like a medical courier. She's acting as a courier driving medical supplies from Birmingham to Selma, which is about a 2-hour drive, and all these
Yeah,
stops in between. So she still does like about an 8-hour day.
yeah, but very important. Selma is an underserved community, and they're having a really bad time with coronavirus right now. All of Alabama is really, but especially South Central Alabama
It is
is
one of the
having a
poorest
time of
counties
that.
in Alabama. Is it either Lowndes
Hmm.
County or Wilcox? But either way, it's one of the poorest counties in Alabama, which puts it high in the running for poorest county in the country.
Right. Hmm. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
she's doing good things and getting good money for it. So that's very cool. It's very cool. It's
Yeah.
hard to find new
Yeah.
employment in this environment.
Yeah. But you find a way, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I got back to work this last week. I worked 2 jobs. That was interesting. It's kind of cool. So things are starting to pick up a little bit, but it's still weird being out there in public, man. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I feel you. It was strange. I have not been getting out very much at all. But one of the last times I did go out, um, it felt normal. Like the gas stations were full, and the parking lots were full, and I was kind of thinking to myself, it probably shouldn't feel normal yet, but it certainly did. And yeah, it's a weird time to get out. My employment, of course, is in the college world, and there's a lot of hand wringing and just plans being formed, and a lot of hoping for the best,
Yeah.
hoping that the plans hoping that the reopening will happen smoothly, and you know uh our classes are online and for the summer, but hoping that everything will be able to come back in some semblance of normalcy when the fall hits. It probably won't be just like nothing happened, but
Nah.
the hope now in the academic community, from what I've discerned, is we have a plan, phased reopenings and what have you, and we're going to hope that this, if we have to make adjustments to the plan, we will, but we're hoping that we don't have to make many. So
Right. Right.
yeah, and until then, I'm just sitting around wishing somebody would ask me some music questions. So
Oh,
you don't have any, do you, Jeremy?
you're sitting in the right chair for that, bud. Shall we get on to our listener shout-outs? We have some shout-outs.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay, so now last episode we did this video thing. We talked about our friend
Mm-hmm.
Danny Pippin, who incidentally
Yes,
popped
Danny.
up in the middle of while we were talking about it. But he put a nice little post on our Music Student 101 Facebook group.
He did.
It started off saying something along the lines of oh man, I sure missed the Music Student 101. I'm having withdrawals, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Now, somewhere down in that little stream, or what you calls it, Ted Sims, our friend from British Columbia, who also plays bass, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We met Ted Sims at episode 79. He just gave us a really nice review, and
I
we've been
recall.
corresponding. And he is a member of the Music Student 101 Facebook group. Anyone who's not,
Yep.
check it out. Facebook group with
Indeed.
an exclamation point.
Yeah. I think if you search Music Student 101 on Facebook, it will be the absolutely first thing that shows up in like Facebook's search thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Music Student 101, all one word, Facebook group, exclamation mark.
Yep.
Definitely join on.
You got it. So this is where I saw this post, and Ted Sims kind of popped in and said he was having a bit of a problem with the song he was trying to learn. He was trying to learn the bass line to this Chicago song.
Right. And you and I both have listened to this a couple of times since then, because we did see that post. I started to weigh in. There was some conversation about the chord changes and things, and I started to weigh in, and I didn't because, number one, they didn't need me. I was looking at all of this great analysis, great music theory discussion, thinking, you know, you guys don't need me to come in and explain this to you. You're doing just fine. And number two, I had not really heard the song, or I mean, I had, but not where I was paying attention or anything. So I wanted to actually hear it a few times, you know, and then maybe I could have some comments. But yeah, it was a great discussion.
Well, I have something to add to that discussion, actually.
Good.
You know, Ted and Danny both had some really good points, and that it seems like they mainly arrived at we're modulating to the chromatic mediant, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we're in B flat.
Right. Good old B flat.
Feels like B flat, right? And then that's the verse, okay? I know I'm going to play it more proper here, but
okay.
during the chorus we actually go to a D flat.
Yep.
To the A
flat. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about those two different parts, and then I'm going to show you my theory about what I think is going on, and it's a little bit different than what they're saying.
I can't wait for this.
Well, I don't know what's right, what's wrong, but it's theory, right? It's just a theory.
It's not about what's right and wrong. It's about what you observe, you know, and to some extent whether you can convince other people. But really, it's just about what you're observing and hearing and understanding what's going on. So
what best describes what's really going on. So
what best describes what's really going on. Well put.
I never realized how much I like Peter Cetera. You know what I mean? How he won my heart back in the early 90s, was it? He sang the theme song to Karate Kid Part 2.
Did he?
I am a man who will fight for your honor.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. That's Peter Cetera.
Yes.
Wow.
That's not Chicago. That's just Peter Cetera solo.
That's just wow. I did not know that.
Yep. So that's when I first heard about him. And then I learned about Chicago after the fact. I had a crush on Kumiko, the love interest in Karate Kid Part 2, little Japanese girl.
I remember. Well, she was Okinawan.
Okinawan, yes.
Yeah, right, yeah. Or at least her character was.
She was, yeah.
Yeah.
Tea party.
Yeah, okay, well, we're really going to go down the rabbit hole if we keep this up, but.
As we do. But I will say that it's kind of funny. I always like a bass player who sings really high. Isn't that good counterpoint?
I suppose, yeah.
It's kind of like a short guy singing real low. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyways, so let's dig what's going on in this song here. Ted and Danny, thanks for bringing it up. And it's a great song.
I've always I've been a Chicago fan for a long time. I'm actually a fan of any of those location bands from the 70s.
Yeah.
So like Chicago, Boston,
Mm-hmm.
Kansas, Alabama, any of those location bands from the 70s. I tend to like those. So.
Ozark Mountain Daredevils.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
good band too. Anyways, let's get into this verse here, right?
Anyways, yeah, okay.
So here's the verse, and I'm just going to show you that we're really establishing ourselves in B flat, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
and we are.
yes. So it's like, you are the love of my life. You are my inspiration. Okay. So we
Yeah,
have a
there you go.
1, you are the love.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
2,
Yep.
5, and then there's like a plagal thing happening here. We go from 4, right? 4 to 1.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
I'm
still
with you
feels like
so far.
B flat, doesn't it? And
It
then
does. It does feel. Just a quick aside. It does feel like B flat,
mhm,
but you'll notice, and you'll probably see. You'll probably notice it more that plagal cadence is not as strong of a cadence as
yes,
the authentic cadence that's coming up. Right.
right, exactly.
It does still feel like we're in B flat, and at this point, in the song, my feeling is definitely that we're in B flat here.
Well, he drives it home on the second 2 lines, on lines 3 and 4, because he
Mm-hmm.
goes again this E flat 4. Na, 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 na. That's 4 to 5, right?
Yep.
Simple and free.
Yep.
And then 2.
2,
Na, 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 na,
4,
na, na, na.
5,
Where does
and
that
then
one
the
go?
next line that wants to go to B flat, and it so totally does. And then we have the next, and then we have sort of a repeat. Yeah.
Yes, it does that twice, and then we come to this chorus. I guess what would be a chorus or a bridge, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the parting question, okay?
Okay.
So we just ended on this F, right?
Yeah. 5. Yep.
And then we end up going to this D flat. Come hold me close, never release me. I'm
Right.
just
Yeah.
singing falsetto here. Again, oops, I'm sorry.
And then we kind of hang out on the A flat for a little while.
Yeah, and then it's back to D flat. Na 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 na, let my love in. So
With
now,
an F.
what does
So we're
that
on
feel like?
F.
Yes, what does that? To me, that feels like kind of a 5, right? It's got a 5 energy to it.
We'll play the B flat right after that, and it's not the next chord, but yeah. See, you hear how we could still sort of end up in B flat if we wanted to.
So,
Right.
where one would pose that we are traveling to the chromatic median, which was actually this D flat chord right here.
Yeah, a chromatic median. They're
One of the chromatic medians.
one of the chromatic medians. If you remember that episode we did on chromatic medians, there are, basically major and minor chord qualities and major and minor interval qualities a third away for all of them. So there's a lot.
It's a key. It's a key that is a relative or a chromatic median relation away from the first key.
Right. Chromatic third.
I just took something simple and made it more difficult, didn't I? Anyways, so we know that
You'd make a great theorist.
right? We know that the chord D flat is not in B flat major.
Right.
However, it is the third of B flat minor.
It is a third of B flat minor.
So I'm starting to wonder if we didn't just go to B minor, okay? Because in the
B
action,
flat minor, you mean?
yes, B flat minor, and because then the action here would be if we're at a D flat, this is a 3
Mm-hmm.
going to 7
Right.
again. Na, 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 da, 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 da. There's that 5.
Yeah.
So we can go from 5 and land B flat minor.
In B flat minor, and in fact, we do. The solo is in B flat minor, is it not?
I believe it really is, actually. Yeah. So that
So
F
then,
can get us back to the B flat, be it major or minor, right?
yeah.
So is it possible that we just modulated to the
To the parallel minor.
To the parallel minor.
um, that is a very good argument. I like that argument. Tiny detail. You wouldn't technically call it a modulation if you move to the parallel minor.
Oh, okay.
Because your tonic did not change.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what I thought, and then I'll tell you some things that I think are cool here, and try to say what I'm going to try to bridge several theories here, and yours, mine, Tim's, and Danny's, and see if we can get some real insight. But what I was hearing. So in the beginning of the verse, and I'm kind of staring at the chords now. So at the beginning of the verse, we are pretty uncontrovertibly in B flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have, like you say, the plagal cadence in B flat, sort of, and then we have the half cadence in B flat, if you really wanted to call it that, because the return to one starts over on a new line of lyrics. But we're definitely in B flat. When we got to the D flat, when I listened to this song, I heard that as a new tonic. Now, let me say immediately that my opinion is not gospel, simply because I have a bunch of degrees or anything, and a lot of this can be subjective. But for my ears anyway, and listening to this song, I did hear D flat as a new tonic on some level.
Okay.
On some level, it was a new tonic. It felt like I could rest there, and that sense of a D flat as a tonic, not the tonic, but a tonic, was reinforced by the A flat, which
is the four. That would be the 4 of D flat, right?
It would be
the 5. The 5. Yeah. Okay.
So we're 1-5 in it over here, right? And nothing establishes a tonic better than 1-5, and then 1. Yeah. Well, he does it at least. He does it a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
Or does
sure.
he?
Yeah, but to me, it almost feels like 4-1.
He goes 1-5-1.
Yeah. But anyways.
Yeah.
So you're saying, and you know what? Honestly, it does feel like what we call the gear shift modulation. Like
right.
on the end of Living on a Prayer, where they actually just take the same thing and yank
and just work it up. Yeah.
Go up. And actually, they did a minor third on that one. Come to think of it, so
did they? I always thought it was a whole step, but I never. I
thought so too. Attention. I thought so too, and I googled it.
Oh,
it sounds like a whole step. It starts because it's only a half step bigger than a whole step. You know what I mean? It's just a minor third. Yeah. So it's got that gear shift feel. This might be what's going on here.
And talking about hearing it as a 4-1, I think that's the way Ted heard it too. At least at one point, one of his comments was that he felt like we were in A flat at that point.
Right. This would be the 1 A flat. Yeah. Right. I felt a little bit of that too.
And this may be purely a product of what kind of music you listen to most often. Because if you listen to a lot of rock or a lot of folk music or a lot of gospel music or things like that, you may very well be more prone to hear this as 1-4-1. Whereas if you listen to a lot of classical music, like big nerd over here, you're going to hear that as 1-5, because 1-4-1 is so much less prominent in that music. 1-5-1 is. But my ears anyway heard D flat, and then as a tonic, reinforced by A flat 5, and then really when the next chord is another D flat, now I heard a 1-5-1, right?
But what would that make this crazy F?
It would make it a mediant.
Yeah,
make it a chromatic mediant, and we're starting to see chromatic mediants as kind of important in this song, right?
Yes.
More importantly, we are seeing, and this is where I started to get to sort of, let's sort of synthesize some things, and is if we start having some real insight. More importantly, we start seeing the F chord as a chord where Chicago is sort of standing on this chord, looking around all the paths they could take from it, right? And say, where can I go from this chord? And throughout the course of this song, they go many places from this chord, right?
Yes.
So in
Yes.
the first two lines, they hit an F, and then they do this kind of, a quarter beat kind of thing where they go, and I'm just looking at some random chord thing that Jeremy found on the internet and emailed me. But
Yeah.
they're
They're
doing
not
this
always
thing,
100%.
right? They go B flat 1, C minor 2,
Mm-hmm.
F5. This is the very first line of lyrics. Yeah. And then they do this thing a little bit where they sort of hang around on F, right? Because they go E flat, which is just a whole step away, G minor, which is just a whole step away, so two neighbor chords kind of. Then
Mm-hmm.
back to E flat and B flat. That's 4 beats: E flat, G minor, E flat, B flat. So they kind of they kind of move around F flat, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Coming into that plagal cadence, and then they go E flat F, E flat F. So they kind of hang around on F, right?
Yeah.
This is this is this has given us the sense, and this is really good songwriting. This is really interesting songwriting, right? So we are going a long time without a tonic. And I couldn't for the life of me make E flat or F sound like the tonic to me. No matter how much I squinted my ears, it was just 4/5, 4/5. And
Yeah.
when and then in the sort of the second stanza of the first verse, I guess you would call it, they go back to that B flat. That really establishes B flat. And then moving on, they do the kind of same thing: B flat, C, 1, 2, 5, and then they kind of hang around B flat again. There's actually in the chord chart I'm looking at, they have A flat now. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
saw
can't.
that. I didn't feel good about that one. Is that the one I sent you? The more
That's the one
recent
you
one?
sent me. Yeah, the most recent one.
Huh.
But at any rate, they kind of hang out around F again, right? E flat F, E flat F, and now
Yeah.
this the good part we were talking about, C minor,
Yeah, right.
the two or the 5 of F, right? I mean, not really because it's a minor chord, but a fifth away from F, you
Uh-huh.
know, and then when we get to this, F again on the "Oh Girl" lyrics,
Mm-hmm.
this F does not go back to B flat. This is the F that tonicizes a major third away, tonicizes the chromatic mediant.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I really like what you say about B flat minor because the solo is totally in B flat minor,
Yeah.
and I can see the impetus of thinking of this as 3/7/3 in B flat minor. Uh, uh, one of my theory professors at some point says always be careful about labeling chords that are a fourth or a fifth away, as 3/7/3/7 or 6/2/6/2. Ask yourself if what's happened is not if you're not in the new key,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Right.
because 3/7 is 1/5.
Sure.
So and in this case, like I said, to me, upon hearing this song, that D flat sounded like a new key area that
Yeah.
is reinforced by a move away to its fifth and back. And then we get F again. And so we've moved backwards a major third from F and kind of hung around there: D flat, A flat, D flat, and then we move
Uh-huh.
forward back to F. And now let's go somewhere new again. Now instead of going back to B flat major, we have gone to B flat minor. Something that we may have even hinted at diatonically, because as you say, D flat is in B flat minor, right? So we may have even sort of hinted at that, before.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things where you didn't notice, but your brain did. That D flat could have even made that B flat a little more palatable because it doesn't sound like a big mood change to me.
Mm-mm.
Now that's probably a lot of because there's a lot of sevenths and stuff like throughout this song, which is, it's not classical harmony the way Mozart would have done it, but it's also, that doesn't sound like a huge shift when we end up in B flat minor.
Kind of punches
It
you a
is
little bit.
kind of punches you a little bit, kind of stand up and take notice, and that's probably why there's only that one common tone, and I would call it, I might would call it tonicization. I have this argument, and I could squint hard enough and make this argument that this is a common chord modulation, that the chords moving up to D flat are, so if we think of the E flat as 2 in D flat, we now have 2, 5 with a 3. Eh, that's
It'd
not
be a
great.
it'd be a major
That's not
two, wouldn't
great.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's not great. So I think I'm going to abandon my own theory on that one, and just call it this tonicization of a chromatic mediant.
That's cool.
Would be my words. But again, that's not to that's not to invalidate what you were saying about B flat minor, because I think that is an aspect of the song, or not to invalidate what Ted was thinking at one point. I don't. He may have changed his mind. I don't remember, but at least at one point he was thinking of this as an A flat. Again, not to invalidate that, because as we've seen, the 4 chord is also a significant sort of concept in this song, right? You can look at this as a lot of E flat to B flat in the verse, and then using A flat to in the bridge in the D flat part, and to sort of keep that idea of movement by fourth present, and make that into sort of an important aspect of the song. So and 5 is a fourth away. I mean, go down a perfect fourth from 1 and you get 5. These aren't two different ideas.
Right. Just inverted.
All right, yeah. So but what really gets me about this song is how important F is,
Yeah.
and how they sort of they're landing on F and looking around at where else can they go. So okay, well, the first easy place I can go from F is back to the 1, back to the B flat. And then they say go to F and say, oh, well, could I go from F to D flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go back to F and say, okay, could I go from F to B flat minor? Sure, And then there's the chord solo, where there's the solo,
Yeah.
which goes through
B
all
flat
different
minor.
things. Yeah, I mean, I think the solo actually ends up in A natural minor at one point. I mean, it's the solo is wild. Coming out of that solo, there's sort of a retransition that again is very heavy on 4 chords, on 7 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the key here is actually fairly ambiguous. So of those 3 chords, B flat, A flat, and E flat, you could probably make an argument for a lot of them,
Mm-hmm.
as being the tonic. Until we get that F again, and we get that F. So we get the lines, just you and me to carry on, simple and free, my lovely. And on the words lovely, we get that F again. We get E flat to F, 4, 5. And then we're back home for the, which I guess is the final verse. I think it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Which takes us back to B flat.
Which takes us back to B flat.
Well, I think that's a good enough discussion on that, don't you? I think we covered.
Yeah,
We didn't really come up with any real answers, but I think we had some good theories.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think they were probably closer than any of they're probably.
Like I said, I didn't feel the need to jump into that discussion in Facebook, because I felt like they were doing just fine without me. So I was
Which
actually happy to let it go, and let them discuss. So.
it's so impressed. I'm so impressed.
Oh
It's such a cool
man,
thing to
oh
see.
yeah, we've got some smart listeners out there, some very smart and very talented musicians supporting this podcast, for which I am eternally grateful.
So before we move on, I do want to say one more time, this discussion you can see on Music Student 101 Facebook group with an
Yep.
exclamation point. We want to thank our friend Taylor Handleton for starting that up.
Thank you, Taylor. It's been great.
Maddie Stern did the awesome graphics and made our image and logos look real sleek and our branding look real sleek. So thank you, Maddie.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's an awesome place to be, and you can find discussions just like this. So
Yeah.
check it out.
And even more random unanswering ones. Yeah. I hope we answered everybody's questions about the Chicago tune. I don't know.
Well,
Uh,
I would say we certainly touched on it.
I think we certainly touched on most stuff there. So
All right.
Yeah, I mean, we could analyze the lyrics in relation to the chords if we wanted to, but
That's got to
that's
be that can be its own show.
that could
That
be
can be
its
its
own.
own episode.
We could just do a whole podcast where we where we analyze Chicago tunes.
Okay. So Jay the guitar player, remember our friend Jay?
Good old
Jason,
Jay. Yeah.
aka Jay the guitar player?
Yes.
He brought up a pretty good point that I hadn't thought about. He's like, "Why don't we have an acronym for the modes?"
An acronym for the modes.
Yeah, you know how we do Fat Cows get drunk at every bar, or Fat Charlie gets drunk at every bar for the
Well, for
order
the
of
order of
sharps.
sharps and flats. So he's wanting an anagram for the order of the modes: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixed Lydian. That
Mm-hmm.
I don't prefer large meals at lunch.
What?
I don't prefer large meals at lunch.
I don't prefer large meals at lunch. Yeah.
Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. The only
Phrygian.
confusing thing is there's two L's. You
Yeah.
know,
And Phrygian is PH, so
yeah,
you can see
PH
that.
instead of yeah, but still
That,
starting with the PA. So
that's a good one. So one more time. I don't prefer large.
I don't prefer large meals at lunch.
Well, that's great, man. I sat down and made up my own. You want to hear it?
Yes.
It's I don't pretend liking my artistic life. So
I
there's
don't
two.
pretend like my artistic life.
Now get this. Jay wrote back and he said, "Man, you weren't listening to me. I didn't ask for no Lydian or Locrian. I just asked for Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Aeolian." He says, and I quote, "Just remember to add in, I like I like Lydian because it's actually useful. Locrian is a waste of life because it pretty much it's pretty much a theoretical only mode, right?"
Pretty much a theoretical only mode.
Locrian.
I have to disagree with him a little bit because I have heard examples of Locrian modes in the wild. Now it is largely a theoretical mode. Its lack of a perfect fifth and its lack of well, basically the lack of a perfect fifth.
And there's no leading tone either.
Yeah. There's no leading tone either. So it just is really impossible to hear a tonic, really.
Mm-hmm.
So that in some ways of thinking, you could think about that as more of a pitch class set. A 7-pitch set.
Yeah.
So just a set of 7 notes more than it is a mode in the sense that would have a final. But then again, there are other modes that don't have a perfect fifth. Lydian, for example, doesn't have a perfect fifth. Neither Dorian nor Mixolydian has a leading tone, and we use Dorian and Mixolydian all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe you can argue you have to have one of those at least. I don't know, but although Lydian may not have a leading tone either. Let's think about
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Lydian does. Yeah, it does. So yeah, theoretical only mode. Well, there are instances where people have put that into practice. So, and written music in Locrian mode. You see that a lot in experimental jazz and things. You see a lot of Locrian mode.
Our friend Bjork.
Yours truly has written in Locrian mode.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah. So yeah, but I will say there's probably a lot of putting in practice what is largely a theory. Certainly in the Middle Ages when the modes came out, Locrian was, it's like it was like the key of G sharp, which would have 6 sharps in a double sharp. It was kind of a theory only, a theoretical existence. But,
yeah.
But yeah, so there you go. That's an interesting question. Yeah, it's an interesting way to theoretical only mode in some ways.
I can see where he's coming from. He's a big pop fan. He likes rock, like '60s rock, and
Yeah,
the Beach Boys. Huge on the Beach Boys. So
right. So Locrian is not going to be your thing.
no,
No,
not, it's not good.
it's definitely not used for that.
Let me pose a Locrian challenge.
Locrian challenge.
Come up with something, you guys. Come up with something in Locrian. We'll listen to it. We'll see
Yeah,
if it sounds like
absolutely.
music or not.
Yeah, I'm not going to participate because I already have.
Okay, I'd be curious to hear.
I put in my dues. So
I want to hear what you did with it. I'll hear what you did with
okay,
it.
okay,
Well, shall we move on?
yes,
Okay, so we got a new Patreon patron.
yay! Thank you.
Francois. Yeah, Francois Bruel. This is French, so
All right,
Francois Bruel. Bruel. There's a
that's as
certain way,
close as any American is going to get. Sorry, Francois.
especially in Alabama. So Francois lives in the countryside outskirts of Paris,
Okay,
and we share a love for Pink Floyd, Jethro Tull, and Genesis. And
nice.
I think Francois really focuses on the keyboard instruments and has a
Mm.
fascination with the harpsichord, which we've been talking about recently.
Aha,
So
yeah,
it's pretty cool, huh?
yeah.
Do you have Francois? Oh, was that
I
Francois' email arriving in your
I
inbox?
well, I do have an email that you sent me here from Francois,
Mm-hmm.
and Francois says, "I'm so glad I came across your podcast. I spent the last 2 months listening to it. At first, it was more of a light revision. I'm currently somewhere around the 50th episode, which is doing great,
Mm-hmm.
and beginning to feel the need to listen twice." Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, around 50, yeah, that's a good point to start doubling up.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at some written examples and doing some exercise along with the episodes, a testimony that I am really learning things thanks to you. Well, thank you for Francois for tuning in and listening and supporting our podcast. We really appreciate it.
That's beyond active listening to actually do the exercises and everything and go on.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what you
oh
got to do.
yeah, yeah. That's really getting there, and we recommend. We applaud that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, Francois continues. One thing that bugs me a little is the general matter of minor harmony. Many methods just don't talk about them at first, as to not confuse the beginner, and later have a tendency to continue explaining things in a major context and just say that it quote is the same in minor unquote. And he's right about that. That is an unfortunate tendency
Mm-hmm.
we theory educators have.
I feel like
Uh,
I've been guilty of the same thing, even though I made it clear that minor is my favorite
yeah,
between the two, right?
we're probably guilty of that on this podcast. We almost certainly are, right? Because we just
Uh-huh.
say, well, function is the same in minor, but there are some other things to talk about. So Francois goes on. Well, easier said than done. Minor is messy, confusing, and we need any opportunity to watch it in details. What goes on in that context?
Hmm.
Also, I don't recall hearing you explain that in classical harmony, the chords are primarily to be built from the aptly named harmonic minor scale. Maybe you did, or maybe you do in later episodes, but I think it should be underlined way more, as it is a source of great confusion in a student's mind.
Hmm.
In more modern genres, minor is, of course, built on any old scale, probably modal most of the time. Still, even if it is complicated, well, especially because it is, I think it needs to be explained over and over again.
Hmm.
Example, episode 49, in minor, the 7, already a major chord, resolves to 3. In my book, the theory books I have at home, 7 is a diminished chord.
Hmm.
Uh, so very confusing to me. I understand your confusion
Yes.
there, Francois. That would confuse me too. And he says, keep up the good work. This is such valuable stuff. As far as I know, nothing compares to you. And in a short time,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and in a short time, you become like old friends to me. And I really couldn't do without these episodes. Best regards. Well, thank you so much, Francois, for the kind words, for your support, and for your questions and observations. You are definitely right. That there tends to be this theory, this practice of saying, well, everything we've said about the major scale now applies to the minor scale, so just transfer it over.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, in American college music theory education, what seems to go on most of the time is you learn You learn all your minor scales, towards the beginning of this process, right? And then once those are firmly in your brain, you start learning theory concepts largely in major.
Yeah.
Now some textbooks go out of their way to not do this, but then other textbooks kind of don't, and definitely professors will have a tendency to describe everything in major because it's quote unquote easier. You know, I don't even understand why they think that, but yeah,
I think I do. I got some ideas.
really.
Yeah. You want to
Hmm.
hear them?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
that's what that pause was
The
for.
sh- the short version is this. Um, well, I guess the major scale is kind of based on the five and the two and everything kind of coming back around the circle of fifths, right? Where the minor
Okay.
scale is maybe a little bit further out from that because of the three flatted notes,
Okay. Yeah.
ish.
I
And
mean,
then
the roots of
also,
the chords is still, but
well, sure, but you also in the minor you have these the melodic minor, you have the harmonic minor, you have the natural minor. So it's already you
yes.
already have all these different combinations of flats and sharps
So it's like, let's
coming
just
at you.
not deal with all that and explain this concept in major, of which we only really have one.
Yeah, maybe, or just like we sometimes do say, oh, it just works the same way in minor. All you got to do is be sure you know the diatonic chords,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And like you say, you learn all of those in fairly quickly in the beginning of the process. And then yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm glad you bring that up about natural, harmonic, and melodic,
Mm-hmm.
because this goes right to Francois's question, and what he described as something that was confusing. So he begins by saying, in classical harmony, the chords are primarily built from the aptly named harmonic minor scale. Now, this may be a review for some of us,
Mm-hmm.
but the harmonic scale exactly differs from the natural minor scale in that the seventh is raised.
Mm-hmm.
So the natural minor scale um, is the exact same scale as the Aeolian mode, and it is just some major scales notes transposed down a third, right?
Yep.
So if you were to play C major, for example, play those exact same notes. Yeah, there you go. Play those exact same notes, but start on A. You now have A natural minor. And
Mm-hmm.
all the minors are like this. They're just some major scale shifted down a little. Where harmonic minor differs is in the raised seventh. So they take the seventh note of that scale and they raise it.
That guy.
There you go. Like that.
Ah!
And they do that to create a leading tone and to have the same leading tone, that same pull back to the tonic that's very, very strong that you have in the major scale. And Francois is also right that in classical music, in classical tonal harmony, which is, by the way, a really big thing in Germany and in France. They listen to a lot more of that than we do here in the United States. This is it's a big deal. But in classical harmony, in general, uh, it is what is thought of as usually happening, quote unquote. I
Hmm.
say usually. Now, the truth is, it depends on what century of classical music you're talking about,
Yeah.
and it can depend on a lot of things. Natural minor certainly is an aspect of classical music, and so is the other scale that we haven't yet talked about, the melodic minor scale, in which we raise the seventh scale degree and the sixth scale degree too.
So
Right,
going up, but
going
then
up.
going back down, we just return to.
Yeah, then we just return to natural minor going down. Yeah, because of conventions that we did an episode on this, so there are conventions and things. But what was I talking about? Yeah, so in classical music, uh, very often this major seventh is raised. and so that we get all kinds of harmonies. Uh, One of the big things the result of this seventh scale degree being raised does is it gives us a major 5 chord in minor scales. So if you were stuck in natural minor, the 5 chord would be a minor chord.
So it'd be like 1, 4, 5, 1.
Right, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
minor.
Exactly. But if we choose to say, well, I'm going to be in harmonic minor, then we raise that 7th degree, and that creates a major 5 chord because scale degree 7 is the third of the 5 chord.
Yeah, so it's gonna sound more like 1.
Right, yeah, and pulling back towards that tonic, giving you that extra little, I really want to hear tonic so bad, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so that is one thing it does. Another thing it does, which points again to Francois' confusion, is that if we were to build a chord on scale degree 7 in a natural minor,
Yeah.
so a diatonic natural minor 7 chord, yes, you find that we have a major 7 chord.
So in the case of A minor, we're doing A minor to
Mm-hmm. To
G,
G major,
G major. Okay, yeah, yeah,
G, B, and D.
yeah.
Right, all natural notes, all notes that are in the A natural minor scale.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we raise the 7th to make it harmonic minor,
Mm-hmm.
that means that we're not playing G, B, and D in that chord. Now we are playing G sharp, B, and D.
Right.
Yeah, which is a G sharp diminished chord. Hear that?
Yeah, that's definitely wants to go somewhere.
Yeah. And that also will highlight that has a tritone in it between G sharp and D, right?
Yeah.
So that tritone desperately wants to resolve, and will often resolve back up to 1.
Right, right.
So this is the thing. So how can we call 7 a major chord in minor? Well, in natural, 7 is a major chord, and we'll typically resolve to 3. We got into this with our discussion of the Chicago song a little
Yeah,
bit, right?
buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So 7 will often go to 3 in natural minor to the extent that it's used,
In pop
and
music,
in
a
pop
lot.
music definitely. Pop
Yeah.
music definitely. In classical music, we don't talk about the key of A harmonic minor. We just talk about the key of A minor, right? And that's because if you're in the key of A minor, it's sort of thought that these different versions of the minor scale can move kind of fluidly. You can be in harmonic, you can be in natural minor for a little while, but then end up in harmonic minor when the cadence comes along, or what have you. You're not really thought of as in harmonic minor. You're in A minor, and which minor scale you're using, that can go back and forth over the course of a piece of music.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's the situation there. Once you raise that scale degree 7 from G natural to G sharp, 7 has gone from a major chord a whole step away from tonic to a diminished chord a half step away from tonic.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Very good.
that is basically what's going on there. So I think Francois is right. These things do bear explaining sometimes, and not just say, well, it's the same thing as is in major, because there are aspects of minor, like the harmonic minor and the melodic minor, and in melodic minor you have a raised 6th and 7th degree, so the 4 chord will be a major chord also, and the 5 chord will be a major chord,
Right.
and the tonic will be a 1 chord, right? And a major 6 in melodic minor, ooh, do I even know what that would be? That would
Major 6.
yeah.
If we were to make a chord out of that.
Yeah. So that's That's going to be F sharp, A, and C's. So that's going to be another diminished chord.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that would have to go to 7 or something. That would be like a 7 of 7.
Oh, going to a proper 7 of a minor key, so it'd be like
Yeah. Something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Parallels are going to abound when you try to do that, but
Oh, sure.
yeah. So that feels like it's kind of rare, but yeah. So there you go, and it is. We should definitely try to um, include discussions like that in podcasts a little more, and not just say, well, it's the same in minor, because minor does present some interesting things. The sixth being a half step away in natural and harmonic minor presents some interesting things. Like the Phrygian half cadence, where that flat six resolves to the 5.
Yeah. Gosh, can I do that? So, yeah.
There you go.
Right. So that's a 1, flat 6,
Yeah.
2 of the 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yes,
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that one.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's not really a thing in a major key, right? Because the 6 is a whole step away. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And one big thing that minors will do that majors keys do less often is modulate up a third to the relative major,
Mm-hmm.
right? In more complex forms. Whereas in classical music, at least, the tendency for things in a major key is to modulate to the dominant. In minor key, there is a lot of precedent for modulating to the relative major. So
Mm-hmm.
D minor to F major, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. D minor to F
Mm-hmm.
major.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe not just one chord like that. We'd have to do a common chord modulation or something. Yeah.
Sure. Oh hell, I don't know. So what would be D minor?
Not so easy, is it?
Uh. Uh. Yeah. I had to sit down and think about that for a sec.
Yeah. Yeah. So B flat is your friend. B flat's in both keys.
Yeah, right. B flat is your
Yeah.
friend.
B
I thought
flat's your
I'd
friend.
never thought I'd hear that. Never thought I'd say that as a bassist.
It's a bassist, yeah.
E is my friend.
He is my friend, son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I know this has been going kind of long, so we had one more question.
Okay.
Maybe we'll save it for the next episode, don't you think?
Okay. Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, because I feel like we're moving on close to an hour.
Okay. So let's say something to the effect of, there are more questions, but we're going to come back and do this again. And
I'll go as far as saying Nancy Chase. Your
okay.
question is next on the line, and Nancy knows what I'm talking about. Nancy has a great question, and it's going to lead into a discussion that I think we should take the time to have, but I don't think we have the time today. Is all I'm saying.
Okay, sure. So let's do that.
Form and analysis.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. So, anyways, Nancy, stay tuned, my friend. We'll get to that.
Yes, and, absolutely.
Thank you, Francois, for your Patreon patronage.
Yep.
Thank you,
Taylor
very
Handelson,
much for the Facebook music
Thank
group.
you. Thank you.
Danny, for your contributions. Ted, Maddie, for your design. All these wonderful people that are making our community what it is.
Yeah, I am very, very impressed with the level of musicianship from all of you guys, and you great listeners out there who are doing really, really good work.
Absolutely. So we'll
All
be
right.
back.
Stay tuned.